At Jefferson High School in Chicago, everyone knew the old janitor, but no one really knew him. His name was Samuel Carter. He was 68 years old, quiet, and always carried a worn-out mop and a gentle smile. Every morning, he arrived before sunrise and stayed long after everyone had gone home. Students barely looked at him. Teachers greeted him politely, but rarely stopped to talk to most people. He was just the janitor, but Samuel had a secret. Every day during lunch, he watched the students from a distance. He noticed the lonely kids, the bullied ones, and especially those who struggled. One student caught his attention more than anyone else, a skinny 17-year-old boy named Ethan Brooks. Ethan wore the same hoodie almost every day. His shoes were falling apart, and he often skipped lunch. Samuel noticed something else. Every afternoon, Ethan stayed late in the library. One evening, Samuel found him sitting alone, trying to finish homework under dim lights. "Son," Samuel asked gently, "why are you always here so late?" Ethan smiled awkwardly. "I'm just waiting for my mom to finish work." "What does she do?" "She cleans office buildings at night." Samuel nodded silently. "And your dad?" Ethan looked down. "He left when I was 6. Samuel didn't ask another question, but that night, he couldn't stop thinking about the boy. Part 2. A hidden struggle lay few weeks later. Samuel accidentally overheard a conversation. Ethan was speaking with the principal. "I'm sorry, Ethan," the principal said softly. "If the tuition balance isn't paid by Friday, you may have to leave the school." Samuel froze. Voice trembled. "My mom is working too. Jobs. We're trying." "I understand," the principal replied. "But the rules are the rules." Ethan walked away. Trying not to cry, Samuel stood in the hallway with tears in his eyes. That night, he opened an old metal box in his tiny apartment. Inside were stacks of carefully folded bills for 10 years. Samuel had been saving money, not for a vacation, not for a new car. He had dreamed of visiting the small town where he was born before he died. But after seeing Ethan, he made a decision the next morning. Samuel walked into the principal's office. "I'd like to pay the boy's tuition." The principal stared in shock. "Mr. Carter, are you sure?" Samuel smiled. "Some dreams are bigger than my own. But don't tell him, he can never know." The principal promised to keep the secret. That afternoon, Ethan was called into the office. "Good news," the principal said. "An anonymous donor paid everything." Ethan couldn't believe it. "Who?" "I'm sorry, I can't tell you." Ethan walked out with tears running down his face. He looked toward the hallway. Samuel was quietly mopping the floor. The old janitor simply smiled. "Everything okay, kid?" Ethan smiled back. "I think today my life changed." Samuel nodded. "I think it did." Ethan Brooks never forgot the mysterious stranger who had saved his education. He worked harder than ever. During the day, he attended classes. At night, he stocked shelves at a grocery store and delivered food to help his mother pay the bills. Whenever life became difficult, he remembered the words his mother often told him: "Never forget the people who help you when you have nothing." After graduating from high school, Ethan earned a scholarship to college, but the scholarship wasn't enough. Books, housing, and extra fees were expensive. Just as Ethan was about to give up, the financial aid office called him. "Mr. Brooks, an anonymous donor has covered the remaining balance." Ethan was speechless. "The same donor?" he asked. The officer smiled. "We're not allowed to say." For 4 years, The same thing happened. Every semester, someone quietly paid what Ethan couldn't afford. Whoever they were, they never asked for anything in return. The truth, nobody knew. Meanwhile, Samuel Carter's life was getting harder. That the old janitor was working longer hours. He skipped meals to save money. His old truck had broken down years ago. His apartment roof leaked whenever it rained. But he never complained. Every paycheck, he put aside money for Ethan. Why? Because Samuel had once been a father. Many years earlier, his own son had dreamed of becoming a doctor, but Samuel couldn't afford college. His son had to quit school and work instead. They argued. One day, the young man left home. A few months later, Samuel received heartbreaking news. His son had died in a car accident. The old janitor blamed himself every single day. He promised that if he ever had the chance to save another young person's dream, he wouldn't let money stand in the way. Ethan became that chance. Graduation day 4 years later, the university auditorium was packed. Families filled every seat. Ethan had graduated at the top of his class in engineering. He had been chosen to give the graduation speech. Standing at the podium, he looked across the crowd. Then he said, "Today, I want to thank someone I've never met." The audience became silent. Someone believed in me when I had nothing. They paid for my education. They changed my future. I don't know who you are, but if you're here today, please stand. The room stayed quiet. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, then, near the back of the auditorium, a familiar old man slowly stood up, wearing a borrowed suit, holding his old cap in his hands. Samuel Carter. Ethan stared in disbelief. It can't be. His mother started crying. The university president smiled. The principal from Ethan's old high school quietly nodded. Ethan dropped his speech. He ran off the stage. The entire audience watched as he hugged the old janitor. Tears streamed down both their faces. "You," Ethan whispered. "It was you." Samuel smiled softly. "I just didn't want another kid to lose his future." "But why me?" Samuel looked into Ethan's eyes. "Because someone once gave up on my son. I couldn't let that happen again." There wasn't a dry eye in the building. The entire audience stood and applauded for nearly 3 minutes, not for the graduate, but for the janitor. The greatest surprise. A few months later, Ethan got his dream job. His first paycheck wasn't spent on a car or expensive clothes. Instead, he visited Samuel's apartment. The old building was falling apart. The stairs were broken. The roof leaked. Samuel opened the door. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" Ethan smiled. "I have something for you." He handed Samuel a small envelope. "What is this?" "Open it." Inside was a house key. Samuel looked confused. "I don't understand." Ethan pointed across the street. A small white house stood there with a beautiful garden. "It's yours." Samuel froze. "No, I can't accept this." Ethan smiled through tears. "You spent years giving me a future. Now it's my turn to give you a home." The old janitor couldn't speak. For the first time in years, he cried. One last gift. Samuel moved into his new home, but Ethan wasn't finished. Together, they started a charity called the Carter Dream Fund. Its mission was simple: no hard-working student should lose an education because of money. every year. They paid tuition for students in need. They never looked for attention. They never asked for recognition. Whenever a student thanked them, Samuel would simply smile and say, "One act of kindness can change a life." Years later, Samuel passed away peacefully. At his funeral, hundreds of people came. Teachers, students, parents, doctors, lawyers, engineers. Many stood and shared the same story. "Mr. Carter helped me. He believed in me. He changed my life." Ethan gave the final speech, holding back tears. He said, "The world called him a janitor. I called him my hero. He didn't leave behind millions of dollars. He left behind something far greater, a legacy of kindness that will live forever." And as Samuel's casket was carried away, every former student placed a single white rose on top of it, because they all knew one simple truth: the richest people in the world aren't those who have the most money. They're the ones who leave the most love behind. The end.